this most current update, Sammitchez. To start off with a dream. I had a very complex dream. It started out, I was being brought to a very, very rural place. My mind perceived it as the place between the deciduous forest, the taiga, and the tundra. I don't know if there's a place as you go further north. I know there's deciduous forests, taiga, and tundra. I don't know if there's another one in there somewhere, but this was a very, very rural place. Seemed like I was in the very north of Canada, in my mind, the way I perceived it. Lots and lots of pine trees, very, very rugged topography, and I was brought very quickly into it had somewhat of a plateau, but then I came to a place where the topography suddenly became steeper, and then I was set down, my apologies. I was standing in a slight depression, and I looked down, and there was a big piece of a ship's anchor chain there. It wasn't as big as the chain links for the battleships, but it was definitely that anchor chain that has the link that goes down in the middle. A big chunk of the links were about this big each, and there was about a 6-foot chunk anchor chain laying on the ground in a puddle of water at my feet. Puddle was irregular, kind of long, maybe 2 inches deep water, not even an inch deep, shallow, very shallow water at my feet. Puddle might have been 2 feet by 6 feet, 1 feet by 6 feet. There was a big chunk anchor chain laying in the bottom of this puddle. And then there was a red cord, a rope, but it was more like just a red cord. And it proceeded along the path that I had been heading up somewhat in elevation. But now I was looking to the right of where I had been going in direction. There was a man standing there and another one of these red fibrous, like a cord, a red fiber cord, and I looked up in the elevation. It was kind of a concave. The angles started at like 30 degrees, 40 degrees, 50 degrees, 60 degrees, and the trees were very dense. And then the dream concluded, and so I went, oh no, wait, no. There was an abrupt scene change. This man, he and I, the feeling, the context of this dream was he and I had discovered a ship, an abandoned ship. Suddenly there was a scene change. Now I'm out upon an ocean. No wave activity, very, very calm. Huge ship, but not like the modern ships, like the ships 100 years ago, the big iron ships, like the Lusitania, like the Titanic. The big rounded stern. I was aft of the ship on the port side, looking down the port side, the left side of the ship, for those of you who don't know port and starboard. The ship was down by the bow, and it was listing to starboard, approximately 20 to 30 degrees, completely motionless. And I saw a stanchion going down from the middle of the stern down underwater where, as my mind would have perceived, where I had thought that there would be one or more screws for propulsion and one or more rudders. And the very clear context of this dream was that that we as two men had discovered this ship, and that we were to tell others about it. I was puzzled, and then the dream concluded. So I went and told Daniel a dream, and he said, this is about the shuttlecraft. You were shown the shuttlecraft, which, well, I had been asking to see. I mean, I have things within my heart I want to see, and many, once you start reading the scriptures and then they start talking to you and then they tell you, you ask one question and it leads to 3 or 5 more or 10 more questions. I wanted to see the shuttlecraft again. This time I was seeing the shuttlecraft in the past. That shuttlecraft was here for 66 million years and it left 13,000 years ago. The context of this dream was to tell us that there is evidence of that shuttlecraft having been here, that we can find physical proof and evidence up in Canada and probably up in the Arctic North of Finland and Sweden and Norway, close to the Arctic Circle, in the Arctic Circle of the North. This dream very clearly pointed out that that the interpretation of this dream is that there is evidence that that shuttlecraft was here. And that we have to go, that's what this dream was telling us, was to go look for and find that physical evidence of that shuttlecraft having been here. And as I meditated on that, I said, Daniel, you know what, that thing was 3,000 miles in diameter, and the Earth's only 4,700 miles in diameter. I said, that thing is almost as big as the Earth. I said, it'd be like 2 marbles touching each other. That thing is absolutely gigantic. So that's one of the latest pieces of information is that we're being told, as concerning the heavenly city, for those of you that what's he talking about? If you stumbled across this video and this is the first video you've ever seen of me, I'm talking about the heavenly city in the scriptures, in the so-called Bible. There is a thing that's spoken of called the heavenly city. That's what I'm talking about. It's been here before. It was here for a long, long time with the Shaddai, the Father reality. And then it left as a result of a transgression and an offense between Shaddai and Ehim concerning Ehim's children. And the story of Prometheus, the firebringer, Prometheus bound and Prometheus unbound, is just one of the stories of that account. As a result, that ship left and did as much damage as possible when it left. In doing so, I'm assuming, now I saw it in another dream previously, it has rocket propulsion as a part of its means of moving. And I'm presuming, and when that thing took off, it stripped off probably 2/3 or 3/4 of the Earth's atmosphere when it left. The Earth's atmosphere was much heavier, much denser, and a much higher oxygen content than it does now. There have been 3 events that have lowered the quality of the Earth's atmosphere and thinned it out. And Daniel has told me there have been 3 of these events. So as I've meditated on this being one of them, the Younger Dryas comet meteor impact event, which included this shuttlecraft leaving, where the shuttlecraft left. In ancient mythology, the story is described as having the fire was stolen. Stole the rocket, stole the fire. Zeus took off in the rocket and stole the fire, took the fire. So we're being told that in addition, of course, that I had found out decades ago, that the Earth is not exactly quite round. It's actually slightly pear-shaped, and that's because of the presence of that shuttlecraft sitting on the North Pole for 66 million years, caused the Earth to become deformed slightly because of its physical presence, its mass. So we are being directed now, at least Daniel and I, and whomever else is so inclined, to go look for the presence of an extremely large something. And of course, we're looking for anchorings. The very clear context is that we're going to find ramps or something, some physical evidence of something very, very large having been sitting up there. And probably the Cabal and those that exist in death and the destroyers of knowledge, the synagogue of Satan, they know all about this stuff, and of course they've hidden it from the masses. So now the creators of knowledge, the Father of lights, the source of all spirituality and knowledge and wisdom and understanding are returning to us and restoring the knowledge and the wisdom and the understanding to us, the information. Even though others would try to destroy that information, it's just being brought to us again. If the books were all burned, fine. Then the spiritual beings, the gods, come and say, okay, I'm going to talk to you, and you write it all down, and here, here's your book again. Here's your book back, even though I already gave you a copy of that 5,000, 8,000, 12,000 years ago, or 13,000 years ago. And then the last good copies of it were in the Alexandrian library, and the destroyers of knowledge came, burned all that down, and said, no, you should worship the Queen of Heaven. And that's where I'm going to segue and go on now to a vision I saw. I saw a vision of standing somewhat to my right, a dairy cow. I was a Hereford or the other breeds, but the ones that are the good milkers, the good milking breeds of dairy cows. Of course, this immediately after I woke up from this, I knew this was the Olam reality because of the cow. But I did not have full understanding of this. Anyway, so I'll complete this. So I saw this cow standing, looking at me, a hornless cow, probably one that's been dehorned, a harmless, gentle creature. Then it stepped forward slightly and turned to the left, and it went from being a milking female to a black male bull, and then it sprouted horns. So it changed its form before me. It shape-shifted. No. It looked like it shape-shifted, and it did, in fact, change its form before me, but this was, again, a vision, so this was spiritual communication about the Olam reality. And now it was facing to the left, and it was a black bull with horns standing at a 90-degree angle to me, looking to the left. The vision concluded. So I immediately knew that the black bull, that this was the power of death, the death reality of Olam, but specifically the power of death. So I went and told Daniel. He said, yeah, you got it right. He said, that's what it was. He said, but here, you missed. He's essentially like, that's not all it is. He said, but the cow part of it. He said, that's the Hera, that Hera Juno reality. I think it was Hera, because, she's known as the cow. And I didn't know that before. I've been lax. I did not research Hera and the way Hera is depicted. And now having, perused numerous TikToks, because this is a part of the earth reality, then that those here on the earth will have common knowledge of this reality. And so there are these women that will put on these cosplay costumes of a cow. And so between that and various references to their mammary glands, their breasts, and this, that, and the other, of mommy milkies and that kind of thing. But what that's referring to ultimately is lactation, which then ultimately is a progression of fertility, conception, and bringing forth life. And lactation is the result of breeding, bearing, and bringing forth, and then nursing, breastfeeding. So that's what I was shown in this particular reality, is that the Olam reality is life, is this mommy milkies. If you've ever seen those TikToks, is it the Misa? There's certain of these cosplays that put emphasis on the women's breasts, and that's a part of this life, because Olam has duality. There's a life side of Olam and a death side of Olam. I was shown both, but I was shown the life side of Olam as Juno Hera, but then I saw the death side of Olam as the power of death, which is the bull seraph, if I have that correct. I'll have to go back and double query Daniel on that. But when I saw that black bull, I said that's the power of death, and that is the calf seraph. But for those that are in death, that reality is the power of death, calf seraph. Where the Vulcan Hephaestus aspect of that is, it's not clear to me because I have not studied Vulcan Hephaestus enough to know. I suppose it is. It's neutral because it is power. So it can be used for life or death. That's what the power realities are. They are neutral. They only do the will of the decrees. The Arca beings are the ones that give the directives to the power beings. So that was another one of the most latest dreams. Trying to think if there was anything else. This recording will conclude for now.